Now, the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, will present the 2022 mid-year budget review in Parliament later today, July 25. Mr. Ofori-Atta was scheduled to deliver the address on Wednesday, July 13th, but the date was changed due to the negotiations between government and the International Monetary Fund, IMF. The postponement was to allow the government to possibly make some recommendations to the budget. Meanwhile, the minister is also expected to make his official comment on this decision after publicly stating the country would not go to the IMF. He will equally provide information on how revenue and expenditure had performed in the first half of the year and the country's current budget deficit figures. For instance, the Chief Executive Officer of the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mark Bedu Abwaje, has urged government to use the review to sustain and improve upon the investor confidence generated by the IMF's visit. According to him, while Ghana has started to fare better in the international market following the government IMF announcement, it was important for the Finance Ministry to announce policies that will improve the local market as well. Joining me is Gilbert Adu Yerenchi, Manager Tax at Deloitte, Ghana. Good morning to you, sir, and thanks for your time.
Good morning.
So first and foremost, what should we expect from the Finance Minister based on the present economic situation and negotiations with the International Monetary Fund for a program?
Great. I mean, first and foremost, why would government seek the assistance of the IMF? Principally is to also assist in showing up what the revenue base of the country. I think that the expectation would be that government should come with measures that will lead to sufficient revenue mobilization in order to ensure that the social services that they would have to provide for citizenry is also done. So that will be the key expectation in terms of, sitting on a table with the IMF. And it's very important, but one challenge is that, you see, one would think that there are sufficient loopholes in raising revenue. But then sometimes the challenge is also that, well, the ones that we are raising, how are we putting them to efficient use? So all these things interplay, and it just drives the investor decisions that any other person who would want to invest in this country or do business in Ghana will be looking at. So it's going to be very key on the table.
Okay. Yeah. So what are some of the key things that, based on the economy and what you know of it, expect to hear from the Finance Minister?
Well, we expect to hear, currently people are having challenges with the taxes that they have. So the expectation is that there could be some window of some tax reduction, at least. That could be the possible expectation. But we doubt, because, you can't go to the IMF and then you say you would want to put in measures to also ease the tax burden. So there would naturally be some form of a balance, some form of equilibrium to ensure that it's a win-win situation. At one breath, we try to ease the tax burden on people, and then at another breath, we try to ensure that we push, the citizenry to understand the need to pay taxes. So it's very key. I think measures that will be put in place to ensure that tax revenue is shored up. Once we're able to achieve that balance, I think that is going to be key. It's going to be key, one of the key things that we should all expect, to see.
Which, of course, will mean that if we're going to show up tax revenue, then we don't have to expect some removals.
Excellent. But then that is the certainty. In as much as you may not expect to, see some removals. If you look at the economy today, in terms, the cost of doing business is a bit challenging. And there will be that expectation that there will be some measures to ease up or free up that space in order for, businesses to flow.
Okay.
It is through the private sector that we can create jobs. So if the cost of doing business for the private man is high, then I can create more opportunities for employment. So all these things will interplay in the decisions that government will come up at the end of the day.
Interesting. Once you're talking about tax, recently the Afrobarometer did a survey which showed Ghanaians' disapproval of the E-levy. Is this something that we should expect that it will be withdrawn?
The withdrawal of the E-levy would, I think that in our opinion, will be quite challenging. But then that is the preserve of government. looking at how the revenue that they expected to raise from the E-levy had not been forthcoming. So it's up to them to do the cost-benefit analysis, because I think that if you look at Deloitte, our budget updates, we did indicate that there is the importance for them to do a thorough analysis. That is not to say that they've not done that. But if you look at countries like Kenya that has implemented such a policy, how have they fared? Would that same situation be seen in Ghana? It's very important. What will be the response rate of the citizenry is very, very key. I mean, so the E-levy could fare well if, there is that sufficient education, there's that balance. And let's not also lose sight of the fact that there is that cry over our fiscal deficit. How government is spending. Of course, if you don't spend, how do we develop the country? But there are other areas that the citizenry are of the opinion that if you look at those areas and maybe you, reduce some of the spending in those areas, there is the tendency that you could free up the space. But then that is an expectation. Of course, the reality will dawn on you when you find yourself in that space. But for now, from where we sit, these are some of the key indicators that, everybody in the business community will be looking at, as well as the ordinary Ghanaian on the street. They are looking at ensuring that some of these things, are reduced. When I was coming, I picked a certain gentleman, and he was talking about increase in transport fare, price, all these things interplay. And there's that cry for some taxes to be removed on petroleum products. All these things will interplay. It's very important. So government will always be saddled with raising revenue and then trying to meet the expectation of the citizenry. And it's always something that you always be faced with as a government official. Yeah.
But with the figures you have at your disposal, with what you've done, you said you've analyzed the budget, and if you look at it, what would be your proposal to government in terms of tax or taxation in that area?
Great. If you do a historical analysis, I think some time back, government in its budget sought to come up with certain policies. I think one of them is the exemption bill. I have heard that the bill has been passed, but I cannot confirm same. But there's a platform that I'm on, and what we gathered was that bill, that exemption bill, has been passed. And the essence of that bill is to streamline the exemptions that we give to investors who come to do business in this country. And the expectation is that it could, shore up, government revenue. But
I can also confirm to you, Per, what I have on our table or on our console is that it was passed last week. So.
Good. Okay, so thank you for that confirmation. So it is one thing passing a law, and it's another thing monitoring to see to its implementation. So we have all, as tax consultants, have been waiting for this exemption bill because we are of the opinion that there could be some way of raising revenue if we are to effectively manage this exemption that we grant to invest. Of course, we cannot erode it entirely because we are a developing country. So, at some point, there will be the need to do that, but you need to do the cost-benefit analysis. So we are hoping that this will help government to raise in or rake in some revenue. But, as a country, over time, we've seen some of these laws being passed. But how effective has it been in terms of its implementation and monitoring? That is, if you're able to do that effectively, then we can see the gains that we expect to make from seeing. But if you are not, and it's the normal everyday thing, then in the end, we will not be able to, rake in the benefit. One other thing that government sought to bring is the implementation of the physical electronic device. It's like a device that will be given to entities that are in the retail and the wholesale market, where government can then track in real time VAT. This law has been passed, but like I said, the implementation
becomes a challenge.
So maybe there may be things that are still ongoing because I'm not in that space of work. But then we are envisaging that if you look at the entirety of the law, it even creates employment. Because you get people who will be managing the machines, people who will be moving around in real time, checking to resolve issues that pertains to these devices that will be given out to these entities. But the law has been passed and it's still there.
On the shelves.
On the shelf, let me put it that way. Maybe it's being operationalized, but we are yet to see its operationalization. And that dovetails into what I just said, that you would have passed the exemption bill. But then the question is, how do we see to the implementation of it? And if there are sanctions thereon, when it is flouted, are people going to be dealt with? That is the only time we can't be seen as trying to efficiently deal with the revenue mobilization situation that we find ourselves in as a country. I think GRE has been at the forefront. They've done very well with the implementation of the VAT on electronic service. That has been done, and a lot of entities like Bloomberg, Coursera, and all those things that render services to Ghanaians. I mean, we are now able to rake in the needed revenue because these entities are non-resident. But when it comes to taxation, especially VAT is consumption driven. So once I sit here and I consume the service, then the VAT is due. But I mean, government has been at the forefront. GRE has done excellent. They have implemented this measure. And from where we sit as tax service providers, we have assisted companies in ensuring that they fully comply with the law. And we envisage that revenues will be flowing in, I mean, when some of these things are implemented well. So we are hoping that government can then, GRE can leverage on these gains to ensure that this issue of revenue mobilization is adequately dealt with.
Interesting. There's still more on the budget here on the JoyNews channel. But let's cross over to Parliament to find out what the preparations are for the Finance Minister's arrival. Kweku Asante is our man on the ground there. Kweku, good morning. What's the update from your end?
So we were expecting the Finance Minister to deliver the mid-year budget presentation at about 10 o'clock a.m. We've just received information that the expectation is now that the Finance Minister will come into the House around 1 p.m. and deliver the mid-year budget statement, about 3 hours in delay. And so the House is about to start normal proceedings, take public business, take questions if there are any, before they will wait for the Finance Minister to come in. But I can say that the minority are particularly upbeat about the presentation today. They are saying that they are going to hold the Finance Minister to account. You know that last week there were issues regarding what is the country's external reserves. Today, the Finance Minister is expected to comment on that, and a debate is expected to ensue. And so at 1 p.m. when the Finance Minister comes in, the minority are expected to press on with the kind of issues that they've been raising with the state of the economy. Brace.
So what are the preparations so far? I mean, he was expected at 10, is moved to 1. What's happening now?
So in terms of the preparation, the House is set. Indeed, if you look at the other paper, the members of Parliament are going to proceed and deal with other business, including consideration of bills, including the consideration of questions and answers from ministers of state, as well as doing other business that they would normally do. We're also expecting to have a press conference with the minority, who is expected to give the minority's expectations ahead of the mid-year budget review. And so that is expected to be done within the next 3 hours as we wait the Finance Minister to appear for the mid-year budget review.
How about presence in the House? Is it some sort of a full one? We know that some people who might not be there, but the capacity, how is it like?
Well, indeed, I don't know if normally for mid-year budget review, the public gallery would have filled up a bit. Members of Parliament, of course, are in their numbers because it's a momentous ceremony, right? And so the House is not so packed in terms of the public gallery, in terms of invitations that have gone out. They've probably gotten information ahead of time that the Finance Minister will be coming in at 1 p.m. instead. And so that aspect is not there. But the Speaker of Parliament, Aban Bagben, just entered the chamber with business expected to comment very shortly. And so MPs are taking their seats. They are going to go on and consider other bills. If you look at the other report that I have, there are a number of issues that they have to consider, including the adoption of reports, program for GNPC. They will also be looking at some reports from some committees, all in the interim. Before 1 p.m., Finance Minister Kenneth Ofori-Atta comes in to deliver his mid-year budget review.
Thank you, Kweku. Be there for us. He will give us all the update from the Parliamentary. So stay with us. We have a comprehensive coverage of that presentation for you here on the Joy News channel. I still have with me in the studio Gilbert Addo, who is Manager Tax at Deloitte Ghana. And we've also been joined in the studio by Julius Bradford Lamptey. He's Head Research and Advocacy at the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.
So we were on taxation before we took that break. So let's wrap up on what you expect.
So, I mean, in the 2022 budget, you recall that government said they're going to do an implementation of the Unified Common Platform for Property Rate Administration. And they're going to do this in collaboration with GRA, which the expectation is that GRA will assist in the mobilization of the property rate, from the populace. But then we have not had any report yet on how the implementation has gone so far. And so I think that it's something that government could touch on.
So it's something you're expecting to hear
Exactly. I'm expecting to hear how that has been implemented because the issue of property rate has always been a challenge in this country. And I think that one of the key indicators is how we have structured our aerial system. I mean, there are some areas that are densely populated. If you don't take care, you walk into somebody's room. So if you don't have access to these properties, who are you going to take the property rate from? You understand me? So I think that the government started some time ago with road, street naming of houses. I mean, when they were doing the census, they went around to do some coding. All these things are, I think, parameters that can help in ensuring the effective implementation of this. But I've always said that it's one thing bringing in the measure, the monitoring of it, and also penalizing people who have that opportunity to ensure the implementation of this and are not forthcoming.
We haven't done much in that area.
No, we haven't done much in that area. I mean, you send somebody to go to this house, the person may go there and even say that, okay, the property rate is 10 Ghana, but if you give me 5 Ghana, we are good to go. And nothing ends up being collected. These are the realities.
Okay, so corruption is denying
exactly.
us
These are the realities, and these practical realities would have to be looked at.
Okay.
And I think that if they're able to implement this measure effectively, hold people accountable, we will be able to reap the benefits that they're expecting to get from this policy.
Okay. You heard in the video there that they expect Finance Minister will come and announce the removal of some taxes on petroleum product. Is this something you're looking at, you're expecting?
No,
from your analysis
From our analysis, I mean, that expectation is, of course, whatever analysis we would do, I mean, we draw inferences from the responses of the populace. I mean, whatever analysis that you would do, because, I mean, we are all feeling, or we could all feel the heat. You understand me? So if it is possible that some taxes could be removed and it may not affect government projection, then government could look at that. I've always said that when you are not in the chair, you tend to see things differently. But when you are in the chair, then you tend to. So government would have to do what we call a cost-benefit analysis. Okay, when we do this, we'll get, I mean, in the eyes of the public, we will be seen as having done a good thing. But then the question is, which other sector will suffer? So a holistic analysis is very, very important. And you need to also meet the demands of the people that are within the economy, because if there's heat, I mean, it's definitely going to affect all of us. Prices are increasing. I mean, somebody just complained that, when you buy bread, at first it was 2 cedi, now it's 4 cedis.
Yeah.
And all these things could be as when the petroleum prices increases, it has a cascading effect. Because if I'm a driver and petroleum prices increase, I will, of course, have to recover my cost. And how would I recover my
Transport
cost?
Transport
fares. So it trickles down. Someone will say, but you are complaining about fuel, but you don't have a car. But of course, I don't walk to the office. I'll pick a trotro. And I'll pay. So if the price some previously was 1 cedi, and it's now 3 cedis. My budget has been altered.
Yeah.
But my salary is still the same. So, but that is not to say that Deloitte is not treating me well. Deloitte is treating me good. But we are looking at a broader picture of issues.
Sure.
And I think that if they are able to look at that, it's going to help.
But you have access to the data. Is it possible there can be some reductions in petroleum taxes?
In terms of possibility, I cannot be conclusive.
Okay.
That is what I would say. Like I said, government will have to take a holistic picture about the entire economy. And if there are areas where they can do some cost-benefit analysis, I think it will be prudent for them to consider such an option.
Okay. Let me bring in Julius Bradford-Lamptey here. He's with the GNCCI, the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry. So, private sector. What is it that you're expecting from the Finance Minister today?
Thank you very much. So for we as a chamber, we are of the view that we need stability. We also need predictability. We also need to assure the business environment that investor confidence is high. Now, from the research that we have done on business confidence, for first quarter was 4.84, which it's on a scale of -100, 0 to +100. So having that score of 4.84 tells you that business confidence is low or almost neutral. And so this sends a very strong signal. And so we're asking government that whatever that has been done, we need to rethink and see how we are able to bolster the confidence of the business environment. We're also asking that there should not be any new taxes. And in particular, we're asking that the E-levy, which the Ministry of Finance and also the GRA brought on board, we felt that the approach was not thoroughly done. The private sector associations were not engaged. And so right from the onset that it was brought on board, they mentioned 1.75. And then we asked that it's on the high side, because from the data that we have, SMEs are generally growth-driven. But if you take EBITDA, their earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, amortization, they run into negative. That tells you that the business environment is not conducive. So any introduction of taxes or new policy measures must take into account the growth of these SMEs who employ over 90%. And they also contribute significantly to the growth of the Ghanaian economy. So we are saying that for the E-levy, we are saying that a maximum should be 1%. There's been an instance where others have called for 5%, but we are
0.545%.
Sorry, 0.5%, but we are actually giving ourselves that margin between 0.5% to 1% to allow room to see at which band would be ideal. And also we are asking that in the IMF discussions, we are saying that much emphasis must be on industrialization. The reason why we are asking for this is that we were hit by the COVID, and so businesses were trying to recover. And unfortunately, the Russia-Ukraine crisis also came in, and that brought about the issue of input supplies. And so, for instance, the issue of fertilizer, the issue of access to wheat and other things are becoming issues that we need to account for. Just, I think last 2 or 3 weeks, the Ghana Export Promotion Authority announced that it's been able to export high. And then so it actually recorded, I'm not sure of the figure, but I think around 17%. And so the question I ask is that, given this increase, how are we going to ensure that this increase or growth is actually resilient? What risk management are we putting in place to ensure that farmers or industries that are into these sectors are able to get their input supplies disrupted? So these are the areas that I would say for now, and if there are further questions.
You spoke about business confidence.
Yes.
What is accounting for the 4-point-something% that we have?
So I think if you should compare, so we did a comparison between the fourth quarter of 2021 and then also the first quarter of 2022. And so what came in mind was the depreciation of the CD, and then also the issue of the E-levy that came on board, and then the supply side constraints. And so these were the issues that we found. However, businesses are actually putting in coping strategies. And then they are saying that they want to adopt new technologies. They would also want to employ more. But if they want to employ more, and then at the macro environment, government is found to put in place policies that seem to be punitive, then it actually goes to cripple them. And so we're asking the government that please be mindful of the SMEs, be mindful of the policies that you put in place to ensure that their growth are actually targeted. They are also nurtured. And then afterwards, once we are able to sustain the growth of these SMEs, then they can be more value-driven, then they can be more sustainable. So this is what we're asking in the policy announcement.
Interesting. If you look at the 2022 budget itself, has it lived up to your expectations?
So for us as a chamber, we saw that the estimates that were made, the projections, that they were quite ambitious, but still attainable. However, we live in a world where there is an increasingly uncertainty. And so we are asking that in this mid-year budget review that is going to be read, we're asking government to take into account the general macro environment globally and be able to come up with key estimates that are truly realistic. It may come as a surprise that growth estimates actually revise them, but it's what we need as a country. We are not in any competition to show that our growth potentials are high, whilst it's having a negative effect on our SMEs. And so we are saying that the government must tread cautiously and ensure that the estimates are actually data-driven and not by any populist approach.
Okay. Government should ensure that there's no populist approach there. But let's look at whether there have been a proposal from the GNCC to the Finance Ministry. Chief, has there been a proposal from your outfit to the Finance Ministry?
So I think in some of our engagement, we've asked that access to finance to SMEs is actually key. And so we were happy when the National Development Bank Ghana was actually brought on board. And we are actually collaborating with them to, first of all, build the capacities of SMEs to scale up their operations and then also to de-risk them, then also make them able to apply the loans. Because we believe that having that loan for a minimum of 3 years actually give them that room to be able to turn around. We're also asking for technical and also financial stimulus. So we are working with other agencies as well to build their capacities in area of digitalization, also in areas of risk management, then also staff issues. We are also asking the government to be considerate about the issue of oil. I think if you look globally, from our analysis, oil has peaked. However, the issue that we are facing is the forex reserve issue. And so we are unable to get the much needed dollars to be able to buy. And so even though you see crude oil prices dropping, we are not feeling that impact. And so we are calling on the Bank of Ghana to see how it can ensure that the cedi is actually stabilized. Because once the cedi is stabilized, I'm sure the fuel prices may be dropping and may also impact on other sectors. And the other thing that we want to say is that, unfortunately, the way Ghanaians price their goods when they see marginal increases is rather unfortunate. And I think it's about time that we sit as a nation, we sit as policy stakeholders and see how, if there's a marginal increase of about 1%, somebody will just increase their goods by 20%, 30%, and would say it's as a result of the increase in fuel prices. But this is not so. And so I think it's about time that we have that honest
So
discussion.
you're calling for price control there?
Exactly.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. It's something that we should do. Anyway, Adrian, let me give you for your final words and then we can wrap up.
Okay, great. I think my colleague did throw light on something I did indicate earlier on, that if the cost of doing business is relatively good, it frees up the system. And once the system is freed, the issue of unemployment goes down. The prices that people are talking about would all be managed. And it's very important, especially the SMEs. They are all in the incubation stage.
Yeah, exactly.
So if they are saddled with all these challenges, interest rates are high. Currently, if you want to take a loan, it's running around 25% up to 30% thereabout. So all these things would have to be looked at. I recall that some years ago, I think one of the government, I don't remember, I mean, they tried to work on the interest rate. And you could see how, I mean, at that point, banks were pursuing.
I think it should be the Kufuor.
Thank you. The banks were pursuing people to even come for loan.
Okay.
So when these things are worked on, it then affects even the tax system.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. So that's Gilbert Adorinchi. He's manager tax at Deloitte Ghana. We also had here Julius Bradford Lamte. He's head research and advocacy at the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry. We'll take a quick break. We'll bring you business after that. We have more news here for you on News Desk. Stay on.